Okay, hi everyone. This is Gemara Review Video 14. We are going to be talking about the first Gemara on Barachot Daf Chaf Amud Bet. So that's Barachot 20b. And we're going to start over here where the Gimel Mem is, where the Gemara starts, and we're going to go until the first Kamash Malan. This Gemara is obviously commenting on our Mishnah, which started the page before. I just put it here, right on Barachot Chaf Amud Aleph 20a, and goes all the way up to here. So let's begin. So the Gemara starts with a quote from the Mishnah. So we're going to highlight that in pink. Kriyat Shma. And what the Gemara is highlighting is obviously, if we look back in the Mishnah, it's quoting from the Mishnah over here, where the Mishnah had said women, slaves, and minors are exempt. Patur means exempt from Kriyat Shma and from Tefillin, but they are obligated in prayer, mezuzah, and Birkat HaMazon. So the Gemara over here is going to take this statement that says women have to say Kriyat Shma, and it's going to challenge it. That's what we're up to now. Okay, so we quoted the Mishnah. That was our first step. And once again, we spoke about how the Gemara has a 4-step challenge over here. So the first step is a quote from the Mishnah, which we just did. And now we are going to have a challenge. Pshita. We're going to put an exclamation point here. Pshita means it's obvious. And the Gemara is saying, wait a second. It's obvious that women are exempt from Kriyat Shema. Why is it obvious that women are exempt from Kriyat Shema? Mitzvat aseh she'azman gramahu, v'chol mitzvat haseh she'azman grama nashim peturot. This is a quote from a different Mishnah in Kiddushin that I think we saw in our worksheets. So this is obvious that women are exempt from Kriyat Shema. It is a mitzvat aseh she'azman grama. It is a time-bound mitzvah. And as we know, any time-bound mitzvah, women are p'turot, women are exempt. So again, the Gemara doesn't like when the Mishnah says things that we would already know. Why does the Mishnah have to waste space telling us, going out of its way to tell us that women are exempt from Kriyat Shema, when obviously women are exempt from Kriyat Shema? It's a time-bound mitzvah, and women do not have to do that. So now the Gemara, so that's step 2. Step 2 is from Pshita until P'turot. And now the Gemara is going to ask a question. So we're going to underline or highlight this in orange because it's a question, even though it's a separate third step. We're starting with a separate third step here, which there's 2 parts to the third step. So the first is Mahu Detema, which is a question. So we're going to put a question mark. Here we go. And Mahu Detema always means the same thing. Mahu Detema means, what might you have thought had the Mishnah not said this statement? Because again, we're challenging this statement and saying, why did the Mishnah have to say that women are exempt from Kriyat Shema? Isn't it obvious? So now the Gemara is going to say, well, maybe I would have made a mistake and I would have thought something else had the Mishnah not gone out of its way to tell me that. So what might I have thought had the Mishnah not told me this? And then it's going to answer that question by telling us something that is called a Hava Amina. I'm going to write this down over here. Hava Amina. There we go. Hava Amina. I'll write it down in English also. A Hava Amina, it's supposed to be an A, is an assumption. And it's what you might have thought if the Mishnah had not told you that women were exempt from Kriyat Shema. And we're always going to kind of highlight our Hava Aminas in blue. Okay, so here we go. Hoil, ve'itba malchut shamayim. Hoil means since. Itba is it contains, kind of in it. And Malchut Shamayim is a reference to saying that God is our king, right? Melech and Shamayim means sky. So we're saying that you might have thought that since Shema contains in it accepting God as our king, when we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and that's something that's very significant, you might have thought, oh, even though the Shema is time-bound, maybe it's so special, it's so important because we proclaim God as king in saying Shema, that maybe women would still have to say it. And here we come to our conclusion. Let me see if I can find a purple. Okay, that works. In our conclusion, we're going to do in purple. Kamash Malan, this comes to teach us that no. This comes to teach us over here. When we say this comes to teach us, we mean this original statement in the Mishnah that told us women are exempt from Kriyat Shema comes out of its way to tell us that really women are obligated. So again, we have this like 4-step process. It's similar to what we had said in our example in class. But if you have a student who always carpools with someone else every night, and one night they text the student saying, I'm coming to carpool, you might challenge that statement. Obviously, they're coming to carpool. They come every night. Oh, what would I have thought had she not texted? Maybe I would have thought, since she didn't come last Tuesday, that she's also not going to come this Tuesday. So Kamash Malan, her text came to teach us that really she is coming. That she had to go out of her way to kind of teach us something new, and it wasn't obvious. So here too, we're saying that women are exempt from Kriyat Shema is not an obvious statement, because even though it's time-bound, and we know it's time-bound, we might have thought it's so special that it's an exception, so the Mishnah comes to teach us that it's not. And here I kind of wrote it out for you guys. If you want to freeze it, you can, right? Going through the quote from the Mishnah, the challenge, the question, right? We can write this over here, right? We know we have, right, the challenge, then we have the question, then we have the Hava, Amina, and then we have our conclusion, which is basically saying everything that we said before, so feel free to freeze the frame and to look at it in more depth. And you see over here, feel free to freeze the screen if you want. I kind of tried to write everything out. Right here we have step 1, the quote from the Mishnah. Step 2 is the challenge. Step 3, we have both the assumption, the Hava Amina. First we have the question, Maudatema, what might you have thought without the statement? And then over here, we have the Hava Amina. I'm going to kind of split this up over here. We have the assumption, what you might have thought without the Mishnah telling us this. And then we have the conclusion that the original statement comes to teach us that women are still exempt from Kriyat Shema. And over here also, I just tried to write out the answers to the questions. So why does the Gemara think it was unnecessary for the Mishnah to tell us that women are exempt from Kriyat Shema? And our answer is because Shema is a time-bound mitzvah, so obviously women are exempt. Then we ask the second question, what might I have thought? What would have been my assumption? The Hava Amina, had the Mishnah not told us that women are exempt from Kriyat Shema, I might have thought that maybe women are obligated in Shema. Why? Because it contains Malchut Shamayim, accepting God as your king. It's very important, it's very special, so you maybe would have thought it's an exception and women would be obligated. But what's our conclusion? That really women don't have to say Shema. So was our assumption, this is our assumption over here, right? This is our assumption. Was this accepted or rejected? Right? It was rejected. And was the original statement necessary or unnecessary? It was necessary. Okay, so we're actually going to look back at the Gemara now, and we're going to do the next sheet 51. And we're going to we did Kriyat Shema, now we're going to do the next part of the Gemara. It's going to go from Umin until the next colon of Kamash Malan, right before it says Chayavin B'Tefillah. And this is going to focus on another part of the Mishnah, not the part that talks about Kriyat Shema, but this is going to talk about the other mitzvah that it says in the Mishnah that women are exempt from, and that is from Tefillin. So when it quotes this over here, right, this is exactly our statement from the Mishnah, right? It's quoting that statement, and the Gemara is going to analyze it. So let's go through it. So Umin ha-tefillin, women are exempt from tefillin. The Gemara is going to challenge us using the exact same 4-step process. It's going to start off with Pshita, and we'll have an exclamation point here. Here's our challenge. If I can kind of write an exclamation mark. So this is obvious. So it's the same challenge as before on Kriyat Shema. The Gemara is saying, why does the Mishnah in Brachot have to go out of its way to tell us that women are exempt from tefillin? Obviously, women are exempt from tefillin. It doesn't explicitly say this in the Gemara, but the assumption underlying this is tefillin is also a time-bound mitzvah, right? We saw in Rashi that you don't wear tefillin on Shabbat, you don't wear it at night, therefore it's something that's restricted to one time. It is a time-bound mitzvah. So obviously women don't have to keep it. Why does the Mishnah and Brachot have to waste ink and tell us this again? And now it's going to ask a question, right? So we're switching, even though we're staying in orange, we're switching from challenge to statement. Challenge to question. And it's going to ask, Mahu Detema, which is the same question that we saw before. What might I have thought, or what mistaken assumption might I have made had the Mishnah not gone out of its way to tell us that women are exempt from tefillin. So now it's going to tell us the havamina, right? The mistaken assumption I might have thought, had the Mishnah not told us this. Hoil v'itkish lemezuzah. So itkish, if you guys remember from our reading assignments or from word quizzes, is talking about establishing a hekesh. A hekesh, again, we had said, is kind of making a connection, right, between two psukim. It goes with ma'anaf, just as, so too. So we're going to look at Rashi, who explains this in more detail in a second. But the briefer kind of explanation is, why might I have thought that even though tefillin is a time-bound mitzvah, that maybe women still have to keep it? Because maybe I would have made a hakesh to the mezuzah. And we'll explain the hakesh in a little bit of time. But the assumption over here would be that we know that women are chayavot in mezuzah, right? We see that from the Mishnah over here. So maybe we would have connected mezuzah and tefillin and said, just as women have to do mezuzah, what do they also have to do? They also have to do tefillin. So had the Mishnah and Brachot not gone out of its way to tell us this, that women are exempt from tefillin, I might have thought, well, hey, yeah, it's a time-bound mitzvah, but maybe we connect it to mezuzah, and therefore women have to do it. But what's our conclusion? And we're going to pretend, again, that this is purple. Kamash malan. This comes to teach us, what's this again? This is always the original statement. So we can kind of just hook in over here to this arrow, going to our original statement in the Mishnah. This original statement comes to teach us that no, women are exempt from tefillin, and we don't do a hekesh connecting it to mezuzah. And that's why we had to kind of emphasize again, even though it's a time-bound mitzvah, that women are exempt. They don't have to keep it. Okay, so now we're going to continue in the Gemara. We did the Gemara about Shma. Now we are going to continuing on over here after the colon, from Umin HaTefillin until the next Kamashma. This is going to talk about Tefillin. So here we go, and we're going to start again the same four-step process. We are going to start with a quote from the Mishnah. So we're going to highlight this in pink, and it's right over here, right? We are saying, we can kind of underline this from before, underline this over here. Min HaTefillin. Women are exempt. We said this in the Mishnah, that women are exempt from tefillin. So the Gemara is quoting this part of the Mishnah where it says women are exempt from tefillin, and it is now going to challenge this. So here we go. We have a challenge. So we're going to put this in orange, pshita, exclamation points. Here it doesn't really explain, because it explained earlier that obviously, here's a challenge. Obviously, women are exempt from tefillin. Why did the Mishnah have to tell us this? Why is it obvious that women are exempt from tefillin? The same reason that we said before for Shma, that it is a time-bound mitzvah. You do not wear tefillin at night. You do not wear tefillin in Shabbat. That is what Rashi tells us. So again, it is time-bound and women would be exempt. So why does the Mishnah have to tell us something that we already know? So now the Mishnah is going to ask a question. The same question that we saw before, right? Mahu detema. Again, all of this is really the same. We see Mahu detema over here, and we see Mahu detema over here. Mahu detema means step 3 or 3a. What might I have thought had the Mishnah not gone out of its way to tell me that women are exempt from tefillin? And now we have our havamina, or our assumption of what we might have thought. So we're going to go over here. Hoil ve'itzkish lemezuzah. I might have thought that itzkish means make a hekesh. I make a connection. That maybe I make a connection to mezuzah. We're going to look at Rashi, who's going to explain this in a little bit more depth, though we can actually highlight it kind of over here if we want. I'll highlight in yellow, but don't worry, we're going to look at it with the English on the next page also. But again, you might have thought you make a connection to mezuzah, and what we're going to see is there are two psukim that are back to back for each other. One talks about ukshartem, and one who says uktavtem. So we have two psukim back to back. One of them says ukshartem, you should bind it on your arm, talking about tefillin, and next to it is a pasuk that says uktavtem, that you should write it and post it on your walls, which is talking about mezuzah. So again, the havamina, the assumption over here is maybe you might have thought that you make a connection between, here's our little connection arrow, between mezuzah and tefillin. And just as women are obligated in mezuzah, right, just like women have to do mezuzah, we see this from the Mishnah, right, that they are obligated in mezuzah. I might have thought that also maybe, I'm going to put a little question mark over here, maybe they're also obligated in tefillin. But, Kamash Malan, we have our conclusion in purple. This comes to teach us the original statement in the Mishnah. Over here, it comes to teach us that no, even though you might have thought you can connect it to mezuzah and say just as women are obligated in mezuzah, they are also obligated in tefillin, that's not our conclusion. So the Mishnah went out of its way to tell us that despite all of this, women are still exempt from tefillin. So let's look at the English. Okay, and here is just like the chart of kind of what we did in class. If you want to kind of look through it, you can freeze the frame and see kind of how it goes through all the different steps. As we said before, right, you have the challenge, you have the question, plus the hava amina, which means the assumption or the mistaken assumption, and then you have the conclusion. Okay, so feel free to freeze this if you want to look at it in more depth. Okay, so feel free to pause the screen if that is easier for you. I'm going to kind of split this up over here. So again, we have the quote from the Mishnah, the women are exempt, right? The women are, it's over here, that women are exempt, right, from tefillin. We challenge that, like it's obviously that women are exempt, it's time bound. What might I have thought without this? That since we learn a hekesh, a connection from tefillin to mezuzah, you might have thought just as women are obligated in mezuzah, they're also obligated in tefillin. Kamash Malan, the original statement over here comes to teach us that no, women are still exempt in tefillin. Okay, and here's kind of the questions, just to go over and make sure we totally get them. So why does the Gemara think it was unnecessary for the Mishnah to tell us women are exempt from tefillin? Because tefillin's a time-bound mitzvah, so obviously women are exempt. What might I have thought had the Mishnah not told us that women are exempt from tefillin, and why? That maybe women do have to put on tefillin. Why? And the answer is because of the hekesh, or the connection, right, we would learn from mezuzah. And here we go to Rashi, and I gave you guys the English over here, so it's a little bit easier to see. So this is all Rashi, so we'll just read the English. The Gemara says, what would you have thought without the statement? Let's make a hekesh, a connection between tefillin and mezuzah. As it says in the pasuk, ukshartem, you should bind them, about tefillin. And right afterwards it says, uktavtem, you should write, about mezuzah. So just as women are obligated in mezuzah, I might have thought that so too, women are obligated in tefillin. And here again, you can see the two psukim, right? We have Dvarim Vav Chet and Dvarim Vav Tet. That's 8 and 9, right? Psukim next to each other. That the first one over here, right, is talking about tefillin. And the one right after is talking about mezuzah. So I might have thought that just as women are obligated in mezuzah, they're also obligated in tefillin. But that's why our Mishnah went out of its way to tell us that really, no, right, that's the conclusion of the Gemara, that women are not obligated in tefillin. So our assumption, our havamina, that said maybe we make this whole connection is rejected. And the original statement was very necessary because it had to tell us that no, we don't learn this connection. And really, women are exempt from tefillin. And that wraps up these two sections.